All right. So thanks for taking some time to chat.
You're welcome.
Do you want to
Very
tell
welcome.
everybody how we know each other?
Well, we met when I think I was in ninth grade and you were in the 11th grade, I
Yeah.
think,
So like
possibly, maybe
100,000 years ago.
100,000 years ago. Yes, we went to high school together and did theater and, then became best friends slash pseudo siblings. So there's that.
Yeah. That was like literally very early
We,
2000s. Like
yes, it's 20
like
years ago,
2001.
2001. Yeah,
Yeah.
next year is 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. God, we've known each
Crazy.
other a long time.
A long time.
So this is kind of a crazy situation that's happening in the world. I'm in Seattle, as you can see the Space Needle back there.
Yeah.
It's like Zoom is like cutting my head out every now and then, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. You know, technology is good, but it's not great. And then it makes my whole arm disappear into like a neighborhood
Yeah,
down
you're
there.
like
That's fine. We'll deal with that.
not when you're
Um,
covering you up.
but where in the world are you?
I am in Ballinger, Texas, which is in the middle of nowhere. But actually, I'm about 4 hours south west of Dallas. And so I always like to show people, like, if this was Texas, I know it's backwards because it's weird, but if this was
No, it works for
Texas
us. Yeah, that's right.
and Dallas is up here, and Austin is kind of in this area. Ballinger is like that.
Yeah.
So kind of over in that little location.
I always
So
tell
there's
people that area out there in Texas where there's no dots for cities, right in the
yeah,
middle.
that's where we're at. Yeah. So there's 4,000 people live in Ballinger, which is actually less people than you and I went to high school with. So there's that.
Which is crazy. It is a small town for sure.
Fewer people. Oh my gosh, that was a really bad grammar.
So what's going on with Corona there?
Well, it's we're very much. I mean, I joke a lot that things, fashionable things come to my part of the world a lot later than they come to the rest of the world, and that's true with Corona as well. We do have the two biggest cities around us. San Angelo is about 35 minutes away from us, and then Abilene is about 45 minutes away from us. And those are the two big cities on either side of us. And there's about 10 cases, I think, so far that I've heard about, up to this date at least, heard about in both of those cities. There's not any confirmed cases in my town yet. There has been some testing done, but we haven't gotten the results back from those as to what those people are looking like. So
Yeah.
we are starting to get some more. Our mayor has been speaking more frequently to the public, so I have the feeling that we're about to see some more kind of restrictions come down, or there's probably some positive cases that they're just not haven't been officially confirmed yet. Kind of seems to be the trend that I've been noticing. Like the mayors will come out and talk. There's no positive cases, and then 5 days later, there's some positive cases. Is what it kind of seems like. So that's kind of where we're at. The schools have been closed in the surrounding areas for a while since we had spring break the second week of March, and they haven't been back to school since spring break. So
Yeah, I
it's
think the
been,
Texas governor just closed all schools in the state through the 4th of May. By the
yes,
way, we're
just,
recording this on Tuesday, March 31st, I should say, just
oh, yeah,
because we'll talk about numbers and things, and that's where we're at today.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Governor Abbott just announced about 3 hours ago, I think, or 4 hours ago, maybe longer than that. I don't know what time it is. That that's what I feel like. I don't know what day, month, time. I don't know what anything is. It's just we're all here. Who is?
Yeah.
But anyway, so but he just announced today that we were closed through April 3rd, I think, and now we're closed officially through May 4th. So, oh yeah, so UIL, which is the governing agency that's in charge of all the sports and theater competition and that kind of stuff in the state, has said that they're hoping to complete the seasons have been started. We had to cancel. I mean, we were in the middle of the state basketball tournament, and that had to get canceled, and they haven't been able to do a lot of things. So they're hoping to come back by May 4th, but at this point, it's looking like it's probably going to be later. So I expect to hear from them tomorrow, another pushback date. So
Yeah. You mentioned testing. I think one of the interesting things that I found here, I'm curious if you're seeing it there as well, is that um, so we've had as of the state of Washington's having a problem with their database reporting. So the numbers that we have are only through Saturday, the 28th, but we have 4,896 cases here, and those are positive cases. We've done, I think, almost 50,000 tests, but getting a test here has been almost impossible for a long time. It's finally starting to catch up. You had to basically be in a hospital ready to go to the ICU before they would test. Are you guys seeing some of the same?
Um, yeah, and again, I don't know 100% just because we haven't seen it necessarily in Ballinger, and I have pretty much not left my house for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
trying to stay home as much as possible, even though it's not necessarily here, just trying to be cautious. But I do know that, like in Abilene, I think they've done like only about 200 tests, and I think they're waiting on 100 to come back, and they've had most of them have been negative at this point. But they have had some positive, so I think there's not a whole lot of testing going on necessarily right now, but again, I
Hmm.
don't know that it's hit us yet necessarily either.
Yeah, it's talking about hitting a place. So Seattle started as the epicenter when actually it started at a nursing home across the lake here when you and I were in LA actually
Yeah,
a
yeah.
few weeks ago, and like we both talked about since then, we got back home on Sunday, and it was like a whole different place than, at least Seattle was a very different place than I had left like 4 days earlier. It was shut down basically at that point, and in nothing like that before we had left. So it was a very fast happening thing. But with Seattle as the epicenter, we've got 2,100 cases in the county. New York City has 41,771 cases, with just over 1,000 people have passed there, which seems crazy to me that it's happened that fast. Um, Density really seems to be key here. I noticed, I think in the video yesterday or earlier, um, most previous one, there were actually, I have this number still right here. We have 48% of the cases in the state of Washington, but yet only 29% of the state's population. But it's a very densely populated area. So it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the things that me and my friend Janet have been talking about a lot is
Sister Janet.
Sister
She's not
Janet.
really a sister,
No, no,
but
no.
she should be.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you're not really my brother, but you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things we've been talking about is kind of how thankful we are at this. We're not always, but, or I'm not always. I think she is always, but I'm not always thankful to be necessarily living in Ballinger some days just because of lack of things to do in the city of Ballinger and
Mhm.
things that I specifically would like, but thankful at this
Coffee
moment.
shops, high speed internet, people
Right. Yeah. All those
shopping
things.
without neighbors knowing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All of those things, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're thankful at this moment in time for sure that we are in this kind of environment because I think that's going to be beneficial. And I mean, I still think, I mean, I don't think, I know that it's still going to come into our population. I'm not like, there's no doubt in my mind that there will be cases here or that, people that we know will become infected with it if it's
Mhm.
here or if it's in Angelo or Abilene, which, Janet has family in Abilene and so does her husband. I mean, like we know a lot of people. I have family in San Angelo. So, I mean, people that we know will become infected, but I think that we have a better chance of avoiding it just because of our less dense population.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's been very hard being in a very dense area here. I actually kind of I was ready to like rage quit life earlier today.
Yeah.
And so on calls for work, I literally walked around my kitchen island, through the bedroom, out the balcony, luckily our balcony connects from the bedroom to the living room. So I literally walked laps in like figure eights and walked like just over 4 miles as tracked by my Apple Watch. Like I was just like, I needed to move, and it
Yeah.
felt really good to do it. But that's been one of the hardest things I think for me. Um, what's been hard for you? Like what's changed in your life?
I mean, not a whole lot has changed for me immediately because I already was working from home. And
Mhm.
so, my routine didn't necessarily change. And I work for my mom part time doing helping her. We do t-shirt quilts, and so we're making those. And so
Do you
I've
want to?
been,
You might as well plug it.
oh yes, DallasHouseQuilts.com.
Yeah.
um, do lots of quilts. We're booked out through May because we're so popular and we're so amazing. But anyways, um, so I still go over there and do that, and then I also am doing some online tutoring, doing virtual tutoring, and so since I was already doing that from home, my personal routine hasn't changed much. But I feel
Mhm.
like it's one of those things where I didn't ever necessarily go a lot of places just because I'm not really a homebody, but I mean I keep to myself pretty much. But
Yeah.
when I was like told that I couldn't go places, I was like, now I desperately want to go places. it,
Yeah.
like I was like, I can't just pop over to San Angelo and go sit in the Starbucks for a couple of hours. And it, not that I did that very frequently, but not being able to do it has made it a challenge. And it's weird. I mean, so Derek, our younger brother, is a school teacher in a nearby town, and then Janet is a school teacher and her husband, and it's weird for school not to be in session. Um, like
It's not warm enough outside for that to happen.
not, and it just is very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, it it's hard, and even I mean, I go up to the school every now and then to help with some band things. That's what Janet does. She's the band director. So I go and help her with some things, and
Go Bearcats.
it's weird not being able to do that. I texted the superintendent and I said, I don't know what I can do to help, but I'm here just because I feel like I need to do something to be helpful, and I don't know what that is, but
Mhm.
I'm it just is weird to feel like everything has shut down and the world is ending
Yeah.
and be in a place to and there's really nothing to do. It just is very surreal.
Sure. You mentioned your brother, who is what the term. There's a lot of terms that we've all become familiar with that I don't think a lot of people knew before. But one of the terms that I feel like is used a lot now is immunocompromised, and he's somebody that fits into that bucket.
Yes.
Um, what's his? Obviously, not speaking for him, but
Mhm.
that I know that he's somebody that's been on my mind as another friend who is
Mhm.
in that state. So they both are type 1 diabetics. How are things changing for him and the family?
Um, I think I mean, it it's also hard for him. This is his first year to be a head baseball coach, and so his season got cut short before it really
Mm.
got started, and so he's, I think, kind of grieving that a lot and having
Sure.
a hard time dealing with that, it being his first year, and he was really looking to prove himself, and he was excited about his team, and so that's been hard. But he also, I mean, he is immunocompromised. um, Mom has rheumatoid arthritis. Dad has an underlying lung condition. I've got an autoimmune disorder, and so I think for us specifically, that's pretty terrifying. I know Derek has been, I mean, he keeps kind of joking, but kind of not joking about, we have some land kind of out west of here that he's like, we'll just go live in the land and we'll go take our trucks. And he's like kind of in like survivalist mode. Like we're going to go build a fortress out on the property and get away from all the people and just take all the family and go live out there. So, um, I mean, and his girlfriend is a nurse in Abilene, and so he's not seeing her right now, just because he doesn't want to have any contact with anyone, even someone like his girlfriend that is being clean and safe and all those things. But it's just
Sure.
still he's scared.
Yeah. I mean, she's going into ground zero, if you will. That's a phrase we learned at 9/11. It's all these
Yeah.
phrases.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. I somebody mentioned the other day, I know you and I have talked about 9/11, especially as you were a former teacher and your kids that were living through that. But, we're just hitting the point where those that were born right around 9/11 happening are becoming adults while this is happening.
They're seniors this year.
Yeah. Which is
They
crazy to think
were
about.
either they were born in 2001 or they were born like shortly, like in the beginning of 2002. I mean, so like that's so this group of seniors, was born into that and now is having to deal with this fake graduation thing that's about to happen, I'm sure, across the country because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe we're going to go back to school this year across the nation. I think it's going to be August before we're back in school again. And so I think that's pretty difficult for a lot of seniors to handle. I can't imagine being a senior or a parent of a senior.
Hmm.
And I mean, because I feel like, I mean, and as a former teacher, having witnessed my fair share of graduations and been involved with them, I feel like graduation, and we always tell the kids, this is for your parents, it's not really for you. Like they raised you, they get to have this
My
experience.
parents made me go. Yeah.
Yes, like it's for the parents to see you walk across the stage and, get to celebrate their baby. And so it's hard not to get to do that or feel like it's, I mean, I think schools are going to do what they can to make it, feel special and important and that kind of thing, but it's just not going to be the same. And I think that's going to be, difficult for this group of people to deal with for sure.
Yeah. Um, so I took a video earlier. We happen to have a freak hailstorm here. I say freak, it's happened a couple of times in the past few
Yeah.
days, but we had a lot of hail coming down. And so it's kind of cool to look at from the apartment. But I sent it to both you and your mother independently, and you both had the exact same response, which I thought was interesting, which was, wow, the streets are so empty. And I know you are familiar with the street that I live on. It is a very, very busy street in Seattle, running right through the Amazon campus, that will take you, 30 minutes sometimes to get across at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is when the video was shot. What are things like there in the city?
Well, again, I am not going a lot of places purposefully because I'm just trying to avoid that.
Sure.
I haven't seen a lot. There are still people going out and about. We're not on any sort of shelter in place or anything like that. And so I know, I think Janet went to the store today. She went to the grocery store, IGA, and she went to Walmart and said that there weren't a whole lot of people at IGA. She said it because she had called me to say, hey, it's kind of clear to, if you need to run into IGA. She did run into several people at Walmart that had like their whole families with them and that kind of thing. And she was just kind of flabbergasted that people are, I mean, I think more people are taking it seriously. She did say she saw people like walking in with like Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes or something like in their
Mm.
hands they were opening doors with and touching the carts with. So people are seeming to, take some of that more seriously. Someone took a aerial video with their drone the other day of the streets, and they were very empty. But I also wonder if the streets look much different at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday on a normal day
Yeah.
in Ballinger, just because, I mean, pretty much at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, there people are going to be in school or in work, so I don't know that there's necessarily going to be a great deal of traffic. So, um, I don't, I know that in San Angelo and Abilene, things have definitely slowed down a lot. It's, you drive past places that are normally packed and there's no one in the parking lot and that kind of like movie theaters. It's bizarre to drive past movie theaters right now.
Yeah.
um I had to go in for a doctor's appointment last week to San Angelo, and so just kind of the emptiness of the parking lots I think was more shocking than anything else.
Yeah. Are places closed by order of government down there? I know here restaurants can do takeout, and only essential businesses such as doctors, pharmacies, grocery stores can stay open. Everyone else has to close. Is that
Yeah.
made its way down?
So in San Angelo they are now closed, like non-essential businesses are closed. And all the restaurants, by state order, all the restaurants are takeout only.
Mhm.
And then I think city by city is the closing of businesses and that kind of thing, because not that I necessarily agree with this decision by the governor, but his comment was there are 254 counties in the state of Texas and they don't all have cases. And so it seems inefficient at this point to make a shelter at home order for the entire state when that's not necessarily the best answer for every county in Texas. We are statewide, not gathering in groups of 10 or more. Restaurants are all takeout only, and he is mandating about school closure. So he is doing something statewide, but in terms of like, shelter in place, Abilene went on a temporary shelter in place this week, actually. because they had an incident. I think on Friday, um, they just had some sort of food truck gathering, and there was a whole bunch of food trucks, and like all these people went down there, and the police got called, and they were having to kind of like they were their way that they thought that they were getting around the restriction by saying no more than 10 people at each food truck and stand 6 feet apart in line. But they were like, no, there's more than 10 people right here. So
Yeah.
that's more than 10 people. So that, because of that and some other incidents in Abilene, the mayor had pretty stern words for the people and said, fine, we're just going to go on a temporary shelter at home, or, and not a temporary, temporary, but like a modified shelter at home kind of thing. So,
Yeah. And it's been interesting. I think thinking about it in the past 10 days, I think our apartment door has opened 3 times and that's it. Once to take trash out, once to pick up an Amazon package, and once to go get groceries. And that's, it's
yeah.
crazy. Like normally, in and out all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Really the streets are dead and no one's out and about right now. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm curious. So one of the points of this project is to really document how life has changed, but I'm also curious to document how we live life, because I think looking back on this in 10 or 15, 20 years, it's going to be curious to see how we live life. So I'm curious, you mentioned that the mayor's speaking to the public. You don't have, I'm guessing that the mayor did not get, I believe it's a woman there, correct?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
She did not gather everyone on the town steps and decree anything. So I'm curious, how is
Yeah.
she addressing the public there? Because your city, I feel like, is an interesting place of not the most tech savvy. Internet access is not ubiquitous like it is in larger cities. So what's happening down there?
Well, it's interesting you talk about internet service. That was actually a big deal, and across the nation. But about closing the schools was how we're going to get, you know, instruction to kids. And so they were actually we had talked about this, but and then Janet told me I think the next day that they were checking out hotspots to kids that didn't have internet at home
Mm.
um, in order to get them access to that. But um, the way I've seen the mayor speaking is she's actually doing Facebook videos and posting them on the City of Ballinger Facebook page. They've not been very long. I think the first one was about 4 minutes long, and that only happened at the end of last week. I think, like maybe last Thursday, she posted her first video. That was there'd been some kind of press releases going out, but she hadn't actually addressed. And then I think yesterday she addressed in another like minute and a half long video, um, just saying, as of this point in time, again, we still have no positive cases. And I was like, okay, as
Way to
of
reassure.
this point in time, tomorrow we might, but today we don't. It's
Yeah,
kind of how I feel about those.
that's
So,
interesting.
um, but they haven't been like, it's just been her in the, city hall, which they did close city hall down like to the public here. So you can't go into the city hall. They're still working, but you have to do everything by phone or internet. So,
Yeah. And how are most people consuming news these days? Is it obviously not newspaper or something, but is it TV, social media, internet?
yeah, I think it's kind of a mix. I mean, I get mine from social media, like I guess social media just links, and then I go read the article. I don't get it from people on social media. Let me make that very clear. I get it from respected news sites who post articles on social media. Um, And then my mother and father have been avidly consuming CNN on, well, my father by protest has been consuming CNN on, my mom has it on. We've been convincing her to turn it off the TV as much as possible because she has been getting very anxious about watching all the numbers rise and rise and rise because, I mean, it is terrifying to watch the cases, go up by 20,000 cases every day, just
Yeah.
like, I don't even know how that's possible.
We went up
Uh,
1,796 in one day.
that's
Yeah.
insane. Like we were at 100,000, I think, on Friday, and we're gonna be at 200,000 tomorrow. I
Hmm.
mean, that's insane. Um, but so they've been watching, the television, and then, I think most people probably are um, internet consumers of internet. Now
Hmm.
in Reynolds County, which is where Ballinger is at, you can get the wonderfully written Runnels County Register, which is just such a professional newspaper. I cannot even tell you how professional these news articles that are written like editorials are. I did not know, for instance, before moving here, that news articles could use the first person. Did you know that news articles could use the first person?
I am not as educated in technical writing as you are, but yes, I did have an inkling that that was not supposed to be the case.
No.
So you mentioned, keeping the news on and anxiety. I think mental health is a big thing that is being impacted. Actually, I don't think I know, both with myself, my partner that I live with, others that I talk to. How's that going for you and your family?
Um, it's like I said, my mom has been pretty anxious watching the news. I keep telling her to turn it off.
Hmm.
And so she has cut back. She just comes in and she watches, for whatever damn reason, the president's press conference every day. I'm like, well, that's just worthless, but sure, you can
But I
listen.
got 8.5 million views. That's my actually. I'm doing Trump with the JFK accent. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that seems terribly wrong. But
Yeah.
yes, so she has cut herself back. At least she's not
Mhm.
watching it all the time. Dad's not talking much, which I know is super shocking to hear. Um, he is talk like I mean, he will talk about it, but he's not like he doesn't seem super stressed about it. Derek is pretty panicked about, I think, just like the potential of repercussions that might happen.
Yeah.
And I'm personally doing okay about it. I did when I had to go to my doctor's appointment in San Angelo last week. When I pulled up in the parking lot, because I haven't gone anywhere besides my house or my parents' house for about 2 weeks, and so when I pulled up in the parking lot, I did kind of have to like get through a mini panic attack and think it's okay when I go in, like that I wasn't going to just immediately like touch a surface and contract corona like like
Yeah.
you know and I mean they felt, they were checking temperatures when you walked in, and they had the waiting room taped off so you could only sit like every 3 chairs or something, and I had my hand sanitizer with me and they had hand sanitizer everywhere, and so I felt okay, but I definitely sat in the chair and I was like, he not
Touch
gonna
as few things as possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a little, I was a little panicked going into that office, just being around people. Cause I know that I'm doing everything I can to stop the spread, but I don't control other people. And so
Right.
that is, I think, what's really scary about going out into the real world,
Yeah.
uh, is other people and what they may or may not be doing.
Well, especially, for me, when I hear epidemiologists say, that at the height of this, you mentioned just earlier that we're at 100 and probably going to go to 200,000 cases, that at the height of this, we're probably going to see 100 to 200,000 deaths in the US alone is just gut wrenching and, anxiety inducing in and of itself. And so here we are at the end of March. We know that we're probably going to be locked down
Hmm.
through April. I personally think that we'll be lucky if we're done with this by mid-May, and I still don't think that that's likely. Yeah, exactly. Mid-June, I think, is more realistic and a good scenario. But it's kind of weird. It's like, you think about what's going to happen when this is all over. Is it just one day we're going to flip a switch and say we're done? And then if we all go back out there, if the virus isn't gone, then is it going to start back up and we're going to be back in this place in 6 months? So there's a lot of
Yeah,
the unknown is very anxiety inducing.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in terms of changes, kind of, I mean, going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I, I'm a little bit excited about what this might do for education. To be perfectly honest with you, I
Mhm.
think it's going to totally revitalize and revolutionize the way that we are delivering instruction, especially on college campuses. I could see a lot more online classes happening. But I think even at public schools, obviously they can't go to online curriculum at public schools because there's a childcare element involved with the younger grades. But um, I do think that how we deliver instruction is going to be dramatically impacted by what we've been doing over the last month.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you, but before I ask that, is there anything else you want to, like, that's on your mind that you've been thinking about that you would want to pass along to future people watching this 10, 15 years from now?
I just think I've been very kind of consumed with the idea of how cyclical things are, and that literally 100 years ago, with in 1918, We were dealing with the Spanish influenza, and we're literally in this exact same position. I mean, I saw a newspaper clipping that was, I mean, supposedly from 1918, but it seemed realistic, that was saying, you know, all restaurants are closed, all theaters are closed, no gatherings of groups of 10 or more. And it was, I mean, literally the same thing. It just, we have the benefit of technology that that probably is helping our economy to stay afloat better than it would have in, you know, 1918. And we're not in the middle of a world war, so
Hmm.
that's also helpful.
Yeah.
um, but I think it's just interesting how cyclical thing. I mean, you always hear, you know, history repeats itself, or, you know, you got to learn from your history, you're going to repeat the mistakes of the past. And it's very surreal to be living that history repeating itself concept. Um, and I think it's important just to note that, I mean, this, we can't control nature, and this will happen again. This is not a one time event, and it may be 6 months from now, or it may be 100 years from now, or it may, I mean, there's no stopping it. And so I think it's important just to remain, you know, cautious of how we're, you know, interacting with the world around us and nature. I think that,
Yeah.
you know,
For God's sakes, wash your damn hands.
yes, like why did it take a pandemic to learn that?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Have you seen the TED Talk by Bill Gates when he almost predicted exactly what's happening?
No.
I'll have to send you the link. It's I'll include it at the bottom of this video as well. It's um, almost mind blowing. He talks about, it's a pretty short 8 minute video, but he talks about almost point for point that this is going to happen. It's going to happen soon, and it's not going to be a war that's going to kill people. It's going to be a pandemic.
Mhm.
So it was very scary.
I think, I mean, and you know, not that I think that there's much we can do about overpopulate pop what am I trying to
Population.
overpopulation? There you go. It's like popularization. No, that's wrong. But I think that, you know, there is an element of, when things get overpopulated, or when, you know, the nature feels like it's being infringed upon, that it will take its course, and there's not much we can do to stop it. I mean, obviously we want to do whatever we can to stop it. And hopefully, you know, people are taking precautions and not just letting it, you know, run its course. But
To save the economy.
yeah, yeah. I
I could.
did. I mean, and I will admit that, you know, when this all started, I was one of those people, I didn't think that it was as big a deal as I mean, I didn't think that we should just like ignore it and do nothing about it, but I was like, okay, I mean, you know, whatever. It's just a thing that's happening. It'll be over soon. It won't be that bad. And I think, because we went to San Francisco, and then the next week was when Broadway shut down. And I think when Broadway went dark, I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it really hit home for me when, and when that massive industry shut down. And it's been, I mean, as a theater person, it's impacted that community very hard, and just because of being in New York City especially. But I've seen so many playwrights and just actors that have passed or who have gotten sick, and it's kind of heartbreaking for that community specifically. And
Mhm.
so I think that was the moment that I realized, okay, yep, that's what's happening, and it's scary.
Yeah, not a force to be reckoned with.
Mhm.
So my last question is, what's the first thing you want to do when this is all over?
um I think I just want to go. I mean, they're not my kids anymore, but I want to go hug my kids. I want to go hug those high school kids that I spend a lot of time with, and just be around them, and be around people that are not my family. I mean, I love my family, and I mean, we've been fine. We did joke about that, you know, maybe we should just all shelter in place at one home, but probably we'd kill each other before the virus ever got to us. So that would probably be a bad idea. But
I second that motion.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think, I mean, not that I'm a big people person, but I mean, I, I'd like to be able to get on a plane again, and come see you, and not be terrified of what may or may not be happening on that plane, and just being able to be out in public without fear that someone's going to breathe on me and kill me.
Yeah. I agree. Well, thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate the Texas perspective. So, the Texas correspondent for the Corona Diaries. But thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will say one more thing too.
Hmm.
Just this kind of came out today. The Ballinger ISD posted on their Facebook page that they were looking for that Reynolds County had announced that, or told Ballinger ISD, I guess, that they're in need of masks. And so we are going to start making a bunch of masks at home, which are not necessarily, the best option, obviously, for healthcare workers, but we are going to do what we can. And as we own a bit my mother owns a business that deals in a lot of fabric. We have fabric and things to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of masks, so
That's
that's
awesome.
our next foray. And so we're going to try and make kits probably to hand out to people if they want to sew them but don't have the supplies. We're going to try and make kits for people, so we're excited about that too, and just feel like it's something we can do to actually be helpful, and that's really important, I feel like, right now. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's a great point. Medical, not only are hospitals like overrun, they're building hospitals in, like here, they're converting a event center that's normally used for concerts, things like that. They're converting that into a hospital. Central Park has tents going up as hospitals. There are two massive Navy boats, one in New York, one in LA right now, that are hospitals that are being brought in. Like, our medical system is just being overrun right now. There is not enough ventilators. There are not enough masks. There's not enough gloves. Like, none of all of that is at a shortage. I saw the first air shipment arrived from Singapore earlier of masks, and it was only like 50,000. So, they're doing what they can, but it still won't last that long.
mhm,
So, thank you. That's really cool that you guys are doing that.
yeah, yep. So anyways, that's what I got.